A very good evening and welcome to The World Now at 4. I am Uduak Daniel. First, let's talk the headlines. And on the headlines, Buhari urges judiciary to be honest arbiters. Still on the headlines, Moroccan women call for the right to have a legal abortion. Also on the headlines, Myanmar courts jail Suu Kyi, Australian economist, for 3 years. And on sports, England women to end 2022 against Japan and Norway. And now the news in detail. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari on Thursday urged the judiciary to maintain the position of an honest arbiter ahead of possible disputes that may arise from outcomes of the 2023 general elections. President Buhari, who spoke at the official commissioning of the body of benchers complex in Abuja, said he was not unmindful of the vital role the legal profession played in the electioneering process. While commending the body of benchers, that is the BOB, for the successful completion of the complex, which he noted will boost infrastructural development of the legal profession, President Buhari said his administration would continue to pay strict adherence to the rule of law. Away from that story, the President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawan, has said that he will not appeal the judgment delivered on Wednesday by the Federal High Court, Damaturu, in Yobe State, with respect to the forthcoming Yobe North Senatorial District election. Lawan said in a statement signed and released on Thursday that he had accepted the judgment of the court, which disqualified his candidature and participation in the election. Yesterday, Wednesday, September 28, 2022, the Federal High Court in Damaturu delivered judgment on the rightful candidate for Yobe North Senatorial District for the 2023 National Assembly elections. They said the judgment disqualified his candidature and therefore his participation in the elections. Lawan further appreciated his governor and his constituency member for their support. Still in the news, moved by the Senate to regulate and formalize the employment of domestic workers, apprenticeships, interns, and other informal sector employees in Nigeria got a boost in the Senate as a bill to that effect scaled second reading. The bill, sponsored by Senator Mohammed Sani Musa, is for an act to regulate and formalize the employment of domestic workers, apprenticeships, interns, and other informal sector employees in Nigeria, and to empower the National Directorate of Employment to issue license and monitor privately owned establishment employment agencies whose responsibilities will be to enroll employees into their data bank, safeguard and enhance their social security, and oversee their recruitment by employers who engage in legitimate occupation on such terms and conditions as may be agreed by the parties and for other related matters, 2022. Musa said the participation of Nigerian economy by the informal sector showed evidence of violation of employee rights and non-implementation of labor regulations, hence the need for the act. When we return, news from other parts of Africa. Don't go away. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. This is The World Now at 4 on Hills TV. The World Health Organization office in sub-Saharan Africa says the ongoing Ebola outbreak in Uganda was detected late. Preliminary investigations suggest that a patient could have developed symptoms in August, but it was not immediately picked up as an Ebola case. At least 24 people have so far been tested positive for the Sudan strain of the Ebola virus, which has left 4 people dead. Patrick Otim, who is overseeing the Ebola response in Uganda, told newsmen that the response teams on ground are finding it difficult to identify patient 0. This is because by the time Uganda declared the outbreak, several deaths had already been reported in the community, with many more having attended funerals. Otim said that he suspected that these deaths could have been caused by the Ebola outbreak. Moroccan women demonstrated outside parliament in the capital, Rabat, calling for abortion to be legalized. The protest on International Safe Abortion Day comes weeks after a teenage girl, Miriam, died in a village in the center of the country following a clandestine termination. Abortion is illegal in Morocco and punishable by up to 5 years in prison, except in cases when the woman's health is in danger. As the activist honored the teenager with posters saying, "We are all Miriam," they urged lawmakers to make the termination of pregnancy a legal option for women. Activist Sarah Ben Moussa said there are many who die every month, every year, for the same reason, because of the clandestine abortions, and they are not listened to, not even considered. During the protest, the women chanted, "Having a child must be a choice." They also said women should be able to control their own body. We'll now move to other parts of the world after this break. Stay with us. It is the world now at 4. You're watching on Hills TV. A court in military-ruled Myanmar today jailed deposed leader Aung San Suu Kyi and her former economic advisor, Australian Sean Turnell, for 3 years for violating a secrets law. According to a source familiar with the proceedings, both had pleaded not guilty to charges of violating the Official Secrets Act, which carries a maximum sentence of 14 years. Suu Kyi, Turnell, and several members of her economic team are among thousands arrested since the military overthrew her elected government in a coup early last year, including politicians, lawmakers, bureaucrats, students, and journalists. Turnell has also been charged with immigration violations, for which he faces up to 5 years in prison. The court is expected to rule on that case on Thursday, according to a second source and media reports. Suu Kyi has already been sentenced to at least 23 years in prison in separate cases, mostly related to corruption charges. However, she denies all accusations against her. Opponents of the military say the charges against Suu Kyi are aimed at blocking her from ever getting involved in politics again and challenging the military's grip on power. Away from that now, let's have you know that Hurricane Ian has finally arrived Florida, bringing high winds, heavy rain, storm surges, and intense flooding on Wednesday. It's also brought landfall in the afternoon and moved inland through the evening. Officials were preparing a major emergency response to help those affected by the storm, as around 1.8 million homes were without power on Wednesday evening, according to tracking websites. The hurricane, a Category 4 storm out of a possible 5 on the Saffir-Simpson scale upon arrival, intensified after hitting Cuba, and National Weather Service Director Ken Graham has said on approach that Ian would be a storm we talk about for many years to come.
So this is a devastating storm for parts of Florida, not just on the southwest coast, but also inland associated with some of these impacts. This is going to be a storm we talk about for many years to come.
The Santee said thousands of personnel were assigned to respond to the storm with 250 aircraft, 300 boats, and 1,600 high-water vehicles. Hurricane Ian had battered Cuba as a Category 3 storm just less than 24 hours before nearing Florida. And now let's talk some business news. Malawi's President Lazarus Chakwera and the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken oversaw the signing of a Millennium Challenge Corporation Compact, that is the MCC, worth $350 million on Wednesday. Malawi Finance and Economic Affairs Minister Sostin Gwengwe and MCC CEO Alice Albright inked the MOU, that is the Memorandum of Understanding, in Washington. The aid through the MCC, which assists developing nations meeting democratic benchmarks, will fund a major road network to connect rural and urban areas in Malawi. The Biden administration says through the Millennium Challenge Corporation, that is the MCC, the U.S. government and the government of Malawi will include the $245 million Accelerated Growth Corridors project. Still taking business, leading OPEC Plus members have begun discussions about an oil output cut at the group's next meeting on October 5. One OPEC source told newsmen that a cut was likely, while 2 other OPEC Plus sources said the key members had spoken about the topic. A source familiar with Russian also said earlier this week that Moscow could suggest a cut of up to 1 million barrels per day. The latest comments suggest that key OPEC members have started communicating over the matter. although the volume of any potential cut is still unclear. Next week's meeting takes place against the backdrop of failing oil prices from multi-year highs hit in March and severe market volatility. OPEC Plus, which combines OPEC countries and allies such as Russia, agreed a small oil output cut of 100,000 barrels a day at its September meeting to bolster prices. Now let's take it to Taiwan and have you know that Taiwan will end its mandatory COVID-19 quarantine for arrivals from October 13 and welcome tourists back. The government has announced, completing a big step on its plan to reopen to the outside world. It had kept some of its entry and quarantine rules in place as large parts of the rest of Asia relaxed or lifted them completely, although in June it cut the number of days required in isolation for arrivals to 3 from 7 previously. The country has reported 6.3 million domestic cases since the beginning of the year, driven by the more infectious Omicron variant, with more than 99% of those showing no or only mild symptoms. The government has relaxed restrictions in its new Taiwan model. Cabinet spokesman Lo Ping-sheng told reporters on Thursday, that is today, that it will, with a well-vaccinated population and the pandemic under control at home, the time had come to reopen borders. Although arrivals will still need to monitor their health for a 7-day period and take rapid tests, but tourists will be allowed to return, he added. Now let's go on this quick break. When we come back, it will be more on sports.
Good evening and welcome to Sport News on World Now at 4. I am Memo Cynthia Asoya. As the nation's anthem players prior to their World Cup warm-up match against Senegal, the Iranian men's national soccer team wore black jackets to cover up the Iranian emblem on the jerseys and act in solidarity with the protesters in Iran demonstrating against the threat of a 22-year-old woman taken into custody by the country's morality police. The videos of players standing solemnly with black jackets as they keep their arms around one another are being widely circulated online. The players took off the jacket after the national anthem. European champions England will play their final 2 games of 2022 against Japan and Norway in November. The Lionesses' year began with victory in the inaugural Arnold Clark Cup in February before winning Euro 2022 in the summer. Sarina Wiegman's side became the first senior England side to win a major trophy since 1966 after beating Germany in the final at Wembley. They will play Japan and Norway at the Pinata Arena in Murcia, Spain. Both countries have qualified for next year's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand, and England will face Japan on 11th November before facing Norway 4 days later. Those matches will follow home friendlies against world champion the United States and a sold-out Wembley before hosting the Czech Republic in Brighton in October. England head coach Wiegman said he was really pleased to continue to test against strong opposition, especially as they are fully focused on preparation for the World Cup, adding that Japan is one of the best teams in Asia and offer a different style of play. Meanwhile, Norway's manager Hege Riis was the England interim head coach in 2021 before Wigman took charge. And now to boxing, where Tyson Fury has urged Anthony Joshua to give British fans what they want and sign a contract for a heavyweight world title fight in December. WBC champion Fury, 34, has given fellow Briton Joshua, who is 32, an ultimatum to sign by Monday, but said on social media he has extended the deadline to Thursday. Joshua's promoter Eddie Hearn said he is baffled by Fury's latest demands. Speaking to sports reporters, Hearn responded by saying Fury has been setting unrealistic deadlines, and of course Joshua's team has already verbally accepted Fury's offer of a 60-40 purse split for a fight on the 3rd of December, and television executives from streaming services were scheduled to meet on Monday. Fury's promoter Frank Warren says he does not know what is preventing the contract being signed. Last month, Joshua failed to regain the WBA Super, WBO and IBF belts in a rematch with Alexandra Usyk, losing on a split decision. Fury's last fight was a 6th-round knockout victory over fellow Briton Dillian Whyte in April. And that's your sport news on World Now at 4. Back to Uduak Daniel for the rest of the news. I am Memo Cynthia Asoya.
Firing from all cylinders, Memo Cynthia Sawyer right there on sports. Still talking more story on the World Now at 4 in an effort to protect the Japan senso culture, which goes a long way beyond merely taking a bath. The metropolitan government has introduced a coupon scheme to encourage people to pop into their local bathhouse. For centuries, public bathhouses have been an integral part of local communities, but their numbers is failing and falling as prices rise and more people take baths at home. Operators have been hit even harder in recent years as customers stayed away during the coronavirus pandemic and more recently as overheads began to creep up. And that's the World Now at 4 on Hills TV, but before we go, a quick look at our top stories. We told you Buhari urges judiciary to be honest arbiters. We also told you Moroccan women call for the rights to have a legal abortion. We're brought to the fore the fact that Myanmar courts jailed School Kyi, an Australian economist, for 3 years. And on sport, England women to end 2022 against Japan and Norway. Remember to visit us on Facebook at Hills TV, Instagram at Hills TV. Our YouTube channel is at Hills TV. I am Uduak Daniel. Thank you for watching.